I want to start off by giving all praises and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, Ba'ashem Kakadash. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone who rule well, and peace and salutations to the elders and Akim pushing this truth and sincerity, and to the elect who are receiving this truth. I say grace be unto you. I'm the brother Kahan from the GMS Dallas camp, coming to you today with a quick lesson on an article that I was reading. It's going into reparations for survivors of the Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre. So let me read a little bit of it and give some precepts, and hopefully it's edifying. It says Tulsa plans $105 million in reparations for America's hidden massacre by Brandon Drennan. Right? It says the city of Tulsa, Oklahoma is preparing to award its black community a $105 million reparations package to address the harms caused by the Tulsa race massacre of 1921, one of the largest and most violent racial attacks in U.S. history. And the reason why we highlight a lot of the, historical wickedness of the so-called white man is just to, again, bring the understanding of why Esau and Jacob, is being, played out again in these times. And Esau is so-called, we spiritually link him to the so-called white man, and you so-called blacks are the lineage of Jacob, Yasher Allah. His name was changed to Israel, which is Yasher Allah. He Prince Power. So the whole, understanding behind it is that you shouldn't trust your enemy. And Baba Shah, let me get a quick precept on that real quick. Salaki. All right. Salaki, let me get that. That's in Sirach. This is Sirach. Sirach chapter 12, verse 10. It says, never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusted, so is his wickedness. Right? So awarding $105 million in reparations to you so-called blacks should be a red flag to your mind. $105 million will not replace the lives that were destroyed. Rather, it's just to keep you in subjectivity and slavery, right? It says, verse 11, though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take good heed and beware of him, and thou shalt be unto him as if thou hadst wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust hath not been altogether wiped away. So this money that's been distributed to you so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, trust and believe that there's going to be a way in which Esau is going to, attach strings to it. There's going to be some strings attached to it. He's not just going to blindly, write a check and then that's going to be it. You guys ride off in the sunset, right? So it's important that you so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans understand who your enemy is and understand how he continues to work against your interests. He's not trying to truly repair, because that's what the word reparations goes into, is to repair, right? He's not truly trying to repair the destruction that he's done to you, right? So let's, Baba Shah, let me get another precept real quick. This is Psalms 38 and 12. Psalms 38 and 12, it says, they also that seek after my life lay snares for me. And snares is a trap, right? And they that seek my hurt speak mischievous things and imagine deceits all the day long. So that's the spirit of Esau. That's the so-called white man. His true intent, his true spirit is to destroy you. He lays snares so that you can be deceived and ultimately be destroyed, right? Because he's done it repeatedly over and over again. And the men of the Lord who are preaching the highways and byways, we highlight that so that uh, you so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans uh, discontinue or rather stop seeking or trying to seek Esau's approval, but rather you seek the approval of the living power, which is Yahweh, which means he exists, right? That's the whole point, right? So let me get another precept. This is Second Chronicles 7:14. Right? It says, if my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. That is our ultimate objection or objective, right? That's our main point, is to uh, preach on the highways and byways to the elect, to those who are truly sighing and crying for the wickedness that's been done towards you so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. Those who uh, are trying to remove themselves from the wickedness of this place. That means repenting, praying, fasting back to your power, so that He will hear your prayers and He will deliver you. Right. So, Baba Kasha, let me go back to that article real quick. Salaki. Okay. It says in the second paragraph, the plan by Monroe Nichols, Tulsa's first black mayor. Again, that's Esau, who always he always has to put out a Jake. Tulsa's first black mayor focuses on community redevelopment and does not involve direct payments to descendants of the two remaining survivors of the attack. So look at that. So he's not even going to reward the two remaining survivors of the attack any type of, reparation, right? But rather he's going to try to use, legal terms to, you know, uh, uh, you know, make things seem as though he's doing something good, right? He's going to focus on community redevelopment, right? So again, this is the tricks that your so-called white man, does to you so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, right? It says Nichols made the announcement on Sunday during Tulsa's first ever official Tulsa Race Massacre Observance Day. It says the funds raised by a private trust includes $24 million for a housing fund and $60 million for a cultural preservation fund focused on reducing blight. And I looked up that word blight. That word blight basically means something that damages or spoils something else, right? It actually comes from, like, it's saying a plant, like a plant disease that causes widespread damage, right? So the blight of racism, right? That's what he's trying to remove. That's what he's trying to reduce. He's trying to, remove the cancer of racism from society. But still, he opposed white supremacy, right? So you're not really addressing the issue, right? So what are we to do? What's the answer? That's the question that you should always, you so-called blacks, Latinos, Native Americans, you should ask yourself. Why is the so-called white man? Why is he doing this? And what is the answer? What is the true solution? Well, let's look and see. Right? Let's go get Micah chapter 2. Micah chapter 2, verse 10. It says, Arise ye and depart, for this is not your rest, because it is polluted, it shall destroy you, even with a sore destruction. Right? And we understand that when we read scriptures, things should be uh, understood in a spiritual way. We're not telling so-called Black Latinos and Native Americans to, you know, to travel abroad or, to, you know, travel to another, physically remove yourself from America. Because again, we're talking about white supremacy. White supremacy is it affects all parts of society, right? It uh, it addresses, economic, educational, entertainment, labor, law, sex, war, religion, politics. This is all, the 9 areas of humanity that you know uh, white supremacy touches. So you, even if you go to another country, it doesn't mean that you won't still face that same racism. So the whole point of Michael 2:10 is to, you know, depart mentally, spiritually, remove yourself uh, from the wickedness of this place. Stop seeking the approval of so-called whites. Stop seeking his approval. You know, stop. Thinking that he's going to, uh, reverse the wrongs that he's done in history, right? But rather, you so-called Black Latinos and Native Americans, you should, seek the approval of the living power, which is Yahweh Bashim Shai. And the only way you can do that is through his, beloved son Yahweh Shai. Follow his example, right? And again, uh, as long as you remain a slave in Esau's system, Esau remains the king. So the whole point is to remove yourself spiritually away from this place. That means, stop, you know, uh, celebrating, all these wicked holidays, you know, stop allowing Esau to, you know, make money off of your sin and off of your ignorance, right? That's what you should do, right? So let me go back to the article a little bit. So Lucky, bear with me. It says, where did I stop? It says the Tulsa race massacre has been a stain in the city's history. That's right. Well, not only is the Tulsa, Oklahoma race massacre is a stain, white supremacy is a stain, right? But Esau is not addressing that. So he'll uh, uh, give you crumbs, but he's really using that to ensnare you further. Because as long as you believe in his system, you know he's happy. You're not trying to understand how wicked he is, right? It says the Tulsa race massacre has been a stain on our city's history, hidden from history books, right? And that lets you know right now that he's not trying to reveal, you know, all the wickedness uh, that he's done. Because again, you know, Esau go into slavery, but he really won't explain the depths, you know, and the 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 cruelty that was behind slavery, right? He won't go into all the wicked things that he did in slavery, right? Because you'll look at him a certain way, right? It says the Tulsa race massacre has been a stain on our city's history, hidden from history books, and that's what Esau is doing now with removing slavery from the history books. He's removing slavery from the schools. He doesn't even want to address it, right? It says that tragedy, he said, was compounded by economic harms that followed, namely the building of a highway to choke off economic vitality, quote unquote, perpetual underinvestment and intentional acts of redlining, where black people were denied home and property loans. And it goes way beyond that. See, he's just focusing on the ways of making money that affected you so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. He's not talking about all the people that was destroyed and deleted. How is that going to be repaired? How do you repair, you know, uh, destroying families and killing people? How do you make people, whole again? See, he's not addressing that. He just want to write out a fat check, and then he wants you to forget about it, right? It said, now it's time to take the next big step to restore, Nichols said. The plan is called Road to Repair, and its funds will be managed by the Greenwood Trust. There's the strings now to that, right? It seeks to have 105 million in assets either secured or committed by June 1st, some of which would also go into a legacy fund for the trust to acquire and develop land. And again, all these legal loopholes in which Esau uses a system to write off taxes, and he's not going to give you that money is trust me, it's going to come with strings attached, right? It's not going to make you so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans whole again, right? Baba Kasha, let me get a quick precept real quick. This is Amos 3 verse 3. It says, can two walk together except they be agreed? Right. So, you know, there's no way that you so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans are gonna receive this $105 million in, different trusts, right? You're not gonna, Esau's not gonna let you thrive, while he's while he's oppressing you, right? He's oppressed you this long. Why would he give you a means in trying to do better for yourself, right? So again, there's not going to be a way in which you so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans are going to thrive in your oppressor's land, right? So that's why I'm saying, can two walk together except they be agreed? And there's no way that two kings can live in perfect harmony, right? So there's no way that a kingdom is gonna thrive if it has no fear of the Most High, right? So this system has no fear of Yahweh Bashim El Shai. That's why you're seeing Esau is bringing out information. He's telling you about the wickedness of this system, right? It's Edomites that are coming out, uh, and basically explaining all the things that they've been doing wickedly to you so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, right? Let me get a precept real quick. This is Psalms chapter 112, right? And this is backing up the fact that no kingdom is going to thrive without the approval of Yahweh Bashim Al Shah. So this is Psalm chapter 112 verse 1. It says, praise ye the Lord, blessed is the man that feareth the Lord, that delighteth greatly in his commandments. His seed shall be mighty upon earth, right? The generation of the upright shall be blessed. Wealth and riches shall be in his house, and his righteousness endureth forever. And that's what we should strive for. The spiritual treasures, the heavenly treasures, And again, you're seeing the slow digression. You're seeing the slow, removal of Esau's kingdom. People losing jobs. Companies shutting down. You're seeing the certain states are poverty stricken, homelessness. You see all these things that are happening, and you're understanding, at least through the spirit, that Yahweh is removing the scepter from so these elites, right? So continuing on, it says, verse 4, unto the upright there ariseth light in the darkness. He is gracious and full of compassion and righteous, right? It says, a good man showeth favor and lendeth. He will guide his affairs with discretion, right? Surely he shall not be moved forever. The righteous shall be in everlasting remembrance. And that's what we're striving for. That's why the kingdom of heaven is so important, That's why it's being focused on you know having that vision of the kingdom. That's why Yahweh Shai was always, preaching the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of heaven, right? Because we understand the blessings are tied to that. The blessing that we will have in the kingdom, you know, is not going to be compared to Esau's blessing that he has here. You know, we're not going to be worried about poverty. We're not going to be worried about grief, famine, persecution. We have to worry about that here. Constantly Jake is like scripture says, what we die all the day long. We're sheep among the wolves. Every day we have to wake up, go to work, brothers, dealing with infirmities, right? So again, the blessing, the true blessing is tied to having the fear of Yahweh Shemi Shai, and having that fear of Yahweh Shemi Shai, you know, uh, will give you an unshakable joy, right? That you won't have to, worry about the things that we're worrying about today and we're facing today, right? Baba Shah, let me get Ezekiel chapter 37. Ezekiel 37 and 21. I start at 21. It says, and say unto them, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, behold, I will take the children of Israel from among the heathen, whither they be gone, and will gather them on every side and bring them into their own land. So again, this is going into the prophecy, right? Because we were scattered, so-called Blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans were scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, right? But that, according to prophecy, they would hear, you know, the message of salvation from who? From the men of the Lord, right? And again, verse 22 is saying, and I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Israel. So again, our power is gonna give us reparations. Our power is gonna give us true reparations, right? We're gonna be in our own land. You know, we're gonna have our heart's desire, right? We're not gonna be worried about poverty, famine. We're not gonna be worried about this this devil, coming after you, making us take the C hip, forcing us to take vaccinations, you know so it says, I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Israel, and one king shall be king to them all. And they shall be no more two nations, neither shall they be divided into two kingdoms anymore at all. Right? Verse 23, neither shall they defile themselves anymore with idols. We're still defiling ourselves here in this wicked place, right? And you taking money from your oppressors, in a sense, it's still worshiping him. You taking something that he's giving you, you're gonna seek his approval. You're gonna be thankful to him and not to Yahweh Bashim Shai. It says, neither shall they defile themselves anymore with their idols, nor with their detestable things, nor with any of their transgressions. And as long as you are ignorant to Esau's wickedness, right, you are going to always be in transgression. And transgression means what? Transgression means sin, sin of the law, right? Transgression means sin, you know? Uh, so as long as you are sinning, as long as you are ignorant of your sin, you're not going to be in agreement with Yahweh Shemashah, and Yahweh is not going to show favor towards you. It says, but I will save them out of all their dwelling places wherein they have sinned, and will cleanse them. And that's what we're seeking through Yahweh Shah. His blood cleansed us, but it's something that you have to continue to believe and have faith, right? That you have to fight for that victory, right? Fight for the salvation that was promised, right? It says, I will save them out of all their dwelling places wherein they have sinned, and will cleanse them. So shall they be my people, and I will be their power. And that's what this is. This lesson, I hope is hitting to the point. We are striving to be cleansed, and we're striving to be Yahweh's people, and that comes with a beautiful blessing. That comes with, not having to uh, beg your oppressors for reparations, or even to entertain it, right? We don't want that. We want something much more, right? We want that everlasting kingdom, right? Let me get that Romans chapter 8. Right, it's Romans 8 and 32. Right, it's Romans chapter 8 verse 32. It says what? It says, let me pull it up. Romans chapter 8 verse 32. It says, "He that spared not his own son, but delivered him up for us all, how shall he not with him also freely give us all things?" Baba Shah, let me read that in the NLT, just to just to hit home. Salaki, this thing here, Salaki. Right. Bear with me. Just to hit it home. This is Romans 8. Romans 8 and 32. Romans 8 and 32, it says, so this thing is so slow. It says, since he did not spare his, it says, this is Romans 8 and 32, since he did not spare even his own son, but gave him up for us all, won't he also give us everything else? And that he is referring to Yahweh, right? So Yahweh Shai was glorified. He received everything that was promised to him, right? John the 17th chapter goes into that, right? So that's what we should be aspiring towards. That's what we should be wanting, not crumbs from your oppressors, right? But salvation from our living power through his only begotten son, Yahweh Shai. And he's going to freely give us all that we want. We're going to be made whole again, right? So again, this is something that we should constantly meditate on. Constantly understand that your enemy is trying to remove uh, uh, the promises that Yahweh has already given us, right? And again, as long as you remain a slave in someone else's kingdom, right, then you won't receive your kingship. You won't receive the things that belong to a king. And again, we are Yashawala. Yah meaning he, Sha'ala, prince, power, right? So if you're a prince, you are bestowed, you are promised an inheritance, right? You're promised an inheritance, and we should fight every day to stay on that path so that we can receive and reclaim what's rightfully belongs to us, right? Because it's been promised it's been promised already, through Yahweh Shema Shai. So anyway, I'm gonna end on that. I hope this this lesson was edifying. I want to give all praises and glory to Yahweh Bashim Yahushua Bashim Kakadash. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and salutations to the elders and the Akim pushing this truth and sincerity. And to the elect, keep pushing, you know, uh, keep receiving those blessings, right? And again, I want to say shalom. Kwam Yasharala.